going to talk about 3 ways to sell your house. There are more than that, but we're just going to talk about the 3 most popular. So there is number 1, retail sale. Number 2, cash buyer/investor. And number 3, seller finance. And we'll talk about creative finance a little bit. So the first one, retail sale. That's what most people are used to when they think of, I'm going to sell my house. That means you're going to hire a real estate agent. They're going to put your home on the MLS. They're going to take a bunch of photos. And that's basically the typical way, the most traditional way of selling a piece of real estate, a piece of property. So to do that, what's involved? You're going to need to stage the home. Typically, nowadays, that's kind of standard. So everything's going to be cleaned up. If you have kind of a mess in your house, or if you have things that need to be picked up, that's something you'll need to leave time for. Typically, there's about a 30-day period that it's going to take at least. If everything goes perfectly well, sometimes it's more like 45 or 60, depending on how the banks are doing at the moment. And then you're going to need to make sure you're able to get out of the home so the agent can do showings and things like this. Then you're going to go through the negotiation standpoint, or the negotiation process with different buyers. And then hopefully it's a multiple offer situation. Go through that, settle on price, then go through the inspection contingency, and then so on and so forth. So that's the typical way of selling a home. It's often the most effort, but it can sometimes give you the highest price. Now, keep in mind there are the most costs involved with that, because there's agent commissions, brokerage commissions, and staging and all that stuff that's included typically in that fee. But it might be the right choice for you. Nathan's going to talk about number 2, cash buyer and investor.
Right. So a cash buyer or investor, you've probably seen ads or even posters around town for that say "we buy houses." Some of these are legit, some of them are not. If it's a true investor cash buyer, they're going to be able to close in as fast as you can get it through the title company. So sometimes 7 days, sometimes 14, 21, 30 days. They're going to be able to come in, verify the value of your home, and give you a cash offer. They should give it to you in writing, and they should use a reputable local title company to do the transaction. Don't sign over your deed to a cash buyer investor at your dining room table. The cash buyer investor route works really well for people who want a guaranteed offer, who want to close quickly, who don't want to have people traipsing through their house, who don't want to make any repairs or pay for expensive staging. You just want a cash offer now so that you can move on to whatever is next. You may want to look at a cash buyer investor. At Living Well Properties, we are cash buyers and investors, and we also have the retail side. So it just depends on what's best for our clients, what we give them the options. Retail, you may have more eyeballs on the property. It may, there's a lot more variables and costs up front. And a cash buyer, you might not get the highest possible price because maybe you don't have 10,000 eyeballs on the property, but you've got a guaranteed cash offer. And if you're happy with that number that the cash investor offers you, it can be a good way to go for some people.
Awesome. And the third route is going to be seller finance. So sometimes, often, we'll provide clients multiple solutions, multiple options that they can pick from, and say, hey, we'd be able to purchase your home right now for cash at this price, or for slightly more, or sometimes significantly more. We can purchase your home if you are able to do terms. So if you act as the bank. This is a bit different and can get complicated, but the simple version of it is, with seller finance, if you own your home or piece of property, you can basically come to an agreement with the cash buyer or the buyer of any kind and say, I'm willing to loan you the money to purchase my house, and you and the buyer come up with the terms. So it's whatever you two agree upon. If you haven't done this before, make sure whoever you're working with, that either they really know what they're doing and you go over it with your attorney, or really understand every part of that agreement. So when we put together seller financing terms or an offer based on seller financing, it's really important to us that we make sure the seller understands every single part of it. So we go through it line by line and make sure that it's something that works for them. Now, why would you do this? A good reason you would do this is, say you're getting close to retirement and or you are in retirement and you can't have you can't have above a certain amount of income. Well, if you sell a piece of property and you take a bunch of income all in one year, that can hurt you from a tax standpoint. Seller financing, you
or
can take
or from a or from a Medicare standpoint.
or from a Medicare standpoint. That's right. So it can kick your benefits off if you take 700,000 all at once. If you have a nice piece of property up in the Northwest, so what seller financing can do is it can spread that out over time. We can help walk you through that if you have questions. Just know it's a tool, and just because it can be a little more complex doesn't mean it's bad or wrong. I would encourage you to reach out to us so we could explain it to you further if that's something you're interested in. But just know it's a tool that's available to you. So there you go. We've got retail, we've got cash buyer / investor, and then you've got seller financing where the seller kind of acts as the bank.
And I'll give a quick example, Daniel, just so somebody can latch on with some numbers. Let's say you have a property that's worth 500,000 and you've asked some cash buyers or investors to buy it and they keep offering you 350 and you're going, no, I know this is worth 500,000. Well, maybe it is worth that on the open market if you sold it at retail, or it could be worth that much if you sold it in seller terms. So maybe you could get your next buyer to come in with 50,000 or $10,000, 10% down, and you ask them for monthly payments at a 4.25% interest rate with a balloon payment in 10 years, so that at that 10-year mark, they have to pay off the full balance. That would be an example of seller financing. Your title company can write up that promissory note, and you now become the bank. You own a mortgage now, no longer a deed to a house. And so they're going to make payments to you each month, consistent income each month. And that mortgage is protected by the deed. If they ever defaulted on the mortgage to you, you would have the opportunity to take that property back. So it's a wonderful way to invest for the long run.
And I think you explained that really well. I know there's going to be some people out there that are still confused, which is fine.
Yeah.
Reach out to us, livingwellprops.com, and we'd be happy to help you through it. All right, see you on the next one.
See you on the next one.